A year ago, Bryan Bean was a pretty typical high school student in Longmont, an athlete focused on playing football. Then Bryan had to face the toughest fight of his life. Only on 9 News at 10, photojournalist Brian Olson shows us Bryan's battle.
Coming out.
I'm 195 and 5'8", and I played defensive line with the nose tackle.
99, Bryan Bean.
He's a tenacious individual.
Bryan Bean comes in from his nose tackle position.
Fearless. He plays like a man. You look at him and you're like, well, what's he gonna do? And then you see him on the field, he plays like he's 320, you know.
He's just a competitor. Great person to coach. Makes you as a coach look good. Whatever he's got, you're going to get it every play.
We lost last game, and then football was over, so took a couple weeks off, just did nothing. Then me and my friend Nick started going to the Y and working out.
In the first part of February, he hurt his back weightlifting, and we thought he just pulled a muscle.
And the doctor said, "You probably got pneumonia, just go to the hospital, make sure it's nothing else."
Nobody would listen. Everybody said, well, it's just a sports injury, there's nothing wrong.
And then they took an x-ray, and then they said, "You're being admitted."
And the next day, we did a CAT scan and found the tumor.
Tumor of some sort, and my lung was collapsed.
And from then, it was very quick. His condition kept getting worse.
And then Friday, they told me it was cancerous.
They said it was about 14 centimeters around. It's about the size of a football.
Anything that large in your chest when your lungs collapsed is not good. And I was frightened. I didn't know whether he was going to make it or not.
Without knowing exactly what it was, the extent of it, how it was attached, what type of cancer it was, nothing at all to go on other than the fact there's a tumor in your son's chest and it's cancerous, period.
And that Friday was Friday the 13th. We went down to Denver, and from that point on, I started keeping a log. Bryan in extreme pain, fever, difficulty breathing, given morphine and oxygen and antibiotics. He was on morphine most of the time, and I wanted him to know what had happened so that at some point in time that he could look back and he could see what he had done and what had been through. Bryan is rapidly deteriorating, unable to stay awake, chills, fever, continued difficulty breathing. Dr. Cullen takes charge of Bryan's case.
We're definitely talking less than one case per million children per year with a rhabdomayosarcoma in the chest. And then for it to be this massive is really quite incredible and quite unusual. So that he was, for the most part, functioning with one lung.
The tumor is 14 centimeters, is too big to remove. Could cause death by hemorrhaging or spreading of cancer if tumor would come apart. He decides to wait for more tests to be done and then start chemotherapy. March 18th, first round of chemotherapy administered at 9 a.m.
This is the therapy that we proposed to do with Bryan, was to use very aggressive chemotherapy.
He was very, very sick, and the first chemo treatments were really, really hard.
Tired and nauseated and have no energy, and you just want to lay there and feel awful.
When you're 17, you know, that's the last thing, you know, you think you're going to live forever, and that's the last thing that you think about, possibility of dying. And for him to accept it and then be willing to go along with the treatments really says a lot for his character.
I remember a couple times in the hospital thinking that I'd rather do 2 days for like a year than do that again.
We often hear stories about people beating cancer, but what does it take to win that fight? We'll continue telling the story of Bryan's battle tomorrow and Saturday on 9 News at 10.
Bryan's battle is a story of strength and courage. Bryan Bean is a student at Longmont High School, a football player who learned he had cancer early this year. Young and healthy, Bryan was suddenly fighting to live. Tonight, only on 9 News at 10, photojournalist Brian Olson shares the highs and lows Bryan and his family have faced.
June 1st, appointment at PSL, 10 a.m. for CAT scan.
Big day. I'm waiting for some good news for 3 months now, and if we get it today, that'll be fantastic.
They'll decide whether he has surgery now or whether we'll continue chemotherapy. It's nice that they have the machine that works so well that will outline the tumor so they can see what they're working with.
Hold your breath. Depending on what they say, kind of decides my life for the next 3-4 months again.
Breathe in.
So they don't take it out, football's probably out.
We go over to CHOA and they read the x-rays and then we talk to the surgeon.
Well, without delaying the suspense, you won't believe how small this tumor has gotten. Now the tumor isn't down there anymore. It's shrunk way up, and mostly it's up at the top. And I'll show you that on the scans. Let's go look at them. You can see. This is the tumor, but there's no tumor out here anymore at all. So the approach is going to have to be from the front.
If they have to, say, go through the sternum here, what is that going to prevent? For instance, football within the next year?
Those are not questions that I can answer. That's out of my field of expertise. So what we need to do is line you up with an appointment to see the surgeons.
If they say I can't play, it's going to be just the first time it's never been there. It'll be kind of weird, I guess.
How long are you going to be like? June 2nd. Appointment 4 p.m. in Dr. Chang's office. The tumor is connected to the anterior chest wall and may involve removing some rib, sternum, or cartilage.
It's real important for Bryan to play football, and that was one of the goals we had. But at this point, the size it is now, they feel that it'd be easier to go through the front and crack open his sternum. And so that kind of eliminates football season.
Bryan is relieved that the tumor is smaller, but disappointed and angry that he has to wait another month to get the tumor out. Dr. Chang would like to do one more round of chemotherapy before surgery to hopefully shrink the tumor more. So sorry. This is his 5th treatment.
Part of the reason I wanted surgery early is so I wouldn't have to do this as soon or as much, because I hate this. I can't do football or anything. Good news is I can get it out, and in 6 months I can do whatever I want, but it's just kind of depressing.
Bryan Bean, on behalf of this store, Guitars, Etc., and your friends in the Scamps, we'd like to give you a free guitar. Congratulations, buddy.
Some of the kids wanted to have a benefit for Bryan. The kids had collected quite a bit of money, and that they wanted to go ahead with the benefit.
Let's put the money towards the guitar and just, you know, flatter him.
I feel great. I didn't. People, they care about me, and they're my friends, and they did all this stuff. And it's just amazing.
We love you. That's why we did it, because we care.
Well, I know he's a wonderful kid, and it's wonderful to know that he has such good friends and that they think of much of him as we do.
Bryan, bless you.
July 8th, arrived at PSL 6:15 a.m. to admit. He feels like this will probably be the end of summer for him. The next couple of weeks in the hospital and recuperation from surgery.
Today's the day. I'm tired.
Good morning.
Okay, well, as you know, what we're planning to do is to open this breastbone in front. And if I have to take a rib or two, we may have to even put some synthetic material in there just to lend some strength. Okay, my friend, we'll get going then. Okay.
Bryan's surgery took nearly 4 hours. Tomorrow on 9 News at 10, the final chapter in Bryan's battle.
For 6 months, 9 News photojournalist Brian Olson has followed the story of another Bryan. Bryan Bean, a student at Longmont High, fighting cancer. Tonight only on 9 News at 10, Bryan Bean faces the toughest day of his life, a 4-hour surgery to remove a tumor from his chest. Those 4 hours will decide the rest of his life.
Bryan taken to surgery at 8:45 a.m.
You just take a real deep breath. Try to empty your lungs out.
He was asleep by 8:50. Surgery will take approximately 4 hours.
Bryan's asleep.
It's really hard. It's really hard. But he's okay. And we knew he was okay a couple hours ago, so.
Surgery over at 12:20 p.m.
Hi.
Hello. Everything went fine. The tumor was stuck to the lung. That was the major part of it.
The major part,
and we took a portion of the lung with it, and the pathologist had already frozen section, and there doesn't seem to be any tumor gone beyond the margin.
What's your bed, Mark? You're okay, Bryan? All right, Bryan.
He looks really bad, in a lot of pain and unable to talk much.
Your mom's here, Bryan.
I love you, honey. I love you. It's over, honey. It's all over.
Bryan is not very comfortable.
Hurts in your chest? On your chest? Okay, if it hurts on your chest, is it the blanket that's hurting it? No? Hello?
It went a lot better than we expected. They didn't have to take any rib cartilage.
Cranial nerve, which runs to the diaphragm, which controls the diaphragm, which paralyzes. My son is alive and he's getting well, so that's all I need.
Boy, this has been a long deal for you, hasn't it? God bless your heart, you've been through a lot.
July 10th. Bryan is resting. His sternum is very tender. Pathology report in. Tumor is dead.
All of the mass that was removed showed no viable tumor, and he was reported as having 100% tumor cell kill.
It's kind of interesting and odd, especially when I wasn't expecting more than like 1 or 2 of them. But at least I get a cool scar when they get done. So for the last 3 years, you hear the coaches talking about, you know, play as if your last game, you know. You never know when it's going to be your last game.
Play it like what? Like it's your last play because you never know.
You're like, yeah, right. And now it's like, it was my last game, so.
July 21st, Bryan can go home around 10 a.m.
How long have y'all been here?
14 days.
But it was hard. It's hard to see him go through all that he's had to go through. There's a lot of pain involved and a lot of wondering of how long this was going to take before he'd get better and be able to come home.
Just start doing things again. Getting back to kind of normal life.
August 17th, left at 8:30 for football practice.
I gotta go to practice now. 2-day start today.
I want to use him as, you know, an instructor, someone that can help whoever it's going to be that takes his position. I don't think there's anyone else more qualified than him.
All right. It's gonna be kind of weird. I'm gonna be like telling other people what to do. All right, get a nose and a tackle on each side. Rip under it, Jamie.
I hate it. I want to strap a helmet on him, and I just want to be like, come on, man, come throw some pads on and let's play.
All right, let's go in cowboy right. Standing and watching. During this part's not that bad, but I can sure tell in about 3 weeks it's going to kick in that I wish I could have done it.
You guys stepped up a little, didn't you?
September 5th, first game of the season against Sterling Tigers started at 1 p.m.
Well, they're going to have to double him here, and you're going to have to take that.
I'm just depressed more than anything at the time.
Your side now.
This freaking sucks. The worst part was probably about last 2 minutes before we got in the field. Because that's when coaches give their little motivational talks.
Bust your butt and go hit somebody.
And everyone's getting all pumped up, ready to go and stuff. And then we sat in the back and watched. It just kind of sucks because you realize you're like, hey, I could be having a whole lot of fun right now.
It was really hard because I know how important it was to him. It leaves a big hole in your heart when you know that that's something that he's good at and that it was real important to him that he'll miss out on.
September 8th, CHOA appointment at 8:30 for chemotherapy.
There's been 3 other children that we knew here that have passed away. So you can't be really unhappy because he's alive and he's well, and he'll hope he'll be around for a long, long time.
Welcome, everyone, to our awards program for 1998. This is what we call an Inspirational Player Award. He is an inspiration to me, and he is to the rest of his teammates. Bryan Bean.
There's no doubt in my mind he's already made the decision he's going to win. No doubt.
Bryan will need another round of chemo in December. After that, he'll get a monthly check to make sure his cancer is in remission. Doctors say his chances of complete recovery are 70%. And we'll be right back.
He was tough on the football field, but proved to be even tougher off it. We introduced you to Bryan Bean last November. At the time, he was a senior at Longmont High School and battling cancer. Bryan was a starter for the Trojan football team until he found out he had a football-sized tumor growing in his chest. Turned out to be cancerous. Bryan nearly died, but doctors were able to remove the tumor last July. Tonight, only on 9 News at 10, photojournalist Bryan Olson shows us how Bryan is doing after chemotherapy and 6 months of cancer-free living.
I'd never even broken a bone in my life. and they sawed me in half. Getting my last chemo treatment was probably one of the best days I've had in a long time.
As soon as he finished the chemotherapy, it was just like his life was now able to begin again.
It was great. I didn't have to get up and go to the doctor. I could go to school all day.
Your story's not in by then. You haven't cleared with Flanders.
I could basically be a teenager again, like a normal kid.
FM 90.7 KCDC is proud to present the Pork Rinds and Yoo-Hoo Radio Show.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's the Pork Rinds Yoo-Hoo Show again. It's just a radio show we do at CDC after it's kind of extracurricular for the radio and television classes we take at the CDC. All right, Jared called in and wanted to hear the Aquabats, so we're going to play him Idiot Box, and we love those requests, so keep them coming at 776-4696.
I really like it. When he first started doing it, I thought, oh, this is a little strange.
What's the sound of one hand clapping?
See if I get it right. Pork rinds.
And Yoo-Hoo.
Oh, yeah, pork rinds and Yoo-Hoo, yes.
I was eating pork rinds and Chuck was drinking Yoo-Hoo, and JB's like, pork rinds and Yoo-Hoo. So that's the name of our show. Pork rinds and Yoo-Hoo, how can I service you?
When he's home, he's very quiet. But when he gets on the radio show, I think that's who he is when he's around other people. And I enjoy it because then I get to hear him.
You're listening to the Pork Rinds and Yoo-Hoo Show on 90.7 FM. We'll be back right after this with more music.
Graduation ceremony of the class of '99.
Today I was really happy the whole time. It was just, I was like almost in awe because it was just like, it's finally over.
It is important to know yourself, for you are the person you will spend the rest of your life with.
If I look back and think about the way I was feeling, it was an awful experience, but it was probably better for me than anything because it kind of closes this part of my life as like the finishing thing, because now when I associate high school, I'm not going to associate the normal high school things, going to high school parties and all that stuff. I'm going to associate that's when I had cancer. And going through graduation sort of ends everything. So.
Bryan Christopher Bean.
There were times in the last year and a half I didn't know whether we would reach this point. And when we were actually there, it was such a joy to be a part of it and to see that he's graduating and that he's doing so well.
Mr. Ashenbrenner, ladies and gentlemen, the class of 1999.
It makes a lot of those little quotes that you see written on stuff make sense, like the little happy-go-lucky life is good quotes, the live every day like it's your last, don't let go of things because you won't always have them, and it just puts in perspective when you're laying in a hospital bed thinking you could die the next day, realizing that, I better start making the best of what I got in case it ever happens again.
Photojournalist Bryan Olson's work tonight. Now, there are no guarantees that Bryan's cancer is gone for good, but he is planning a long life without it. This fall, he'll be off to CSU to study electronic journalism.
I bet he'd make a good journalist.
Great story.
How about that? Well, we keep hoping, wishing.